Breaking today, this farce just gets worse. King Charles has to draw a line under it, or I'm warning him that he is going to be humiliated. New reports that Meghan Markle is planning to get around the so-called new Megxit rules, which has now been described as Megxin, it's not going to catch on, by presenting the monarch with some of her shitty jam to try and get publicity. Honestly, this is a farce. I am totally sick of it. I guess the only thing that can bring us some joy today is that Prince William, with a little help from his friends, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, has just totally torpedoed these two and their drive to convince us that they're about to be attacked by terrorists with the release on Taylor and Travis Kelce's wedding day of a bombshell new podcast featuring the future king. Here's just a little taster. London's calling.
Our guest today is the 6'3" prince from London, England. That's right, the president of the English Football Association, the vice-royal patron of the Welsh Rugby Union, the Duke of Cambridge, the Duke of Cornwall, the Lord of the Isles, Prince of Great Stewart of Scotland, Earl of Chester, and the Prince of Wales. 90 presenters, please welcome His Royal Highness Prince William!
That is quite an intro, guys. Amazing.
We had to do it big for you. Had to do it big.
Now that's what it means to be a real star, okay? Meanwhile, Meghan's like, God, what am I going to do? I'm going to sneak some was never into my bag and give it to the king, and I'm going to launch this new lavender honey. I mean, it's gross, isn't it? But anyway, here's the reporting from Rob Shooter, who's describing this as a peace offering. Oh, please. It's nothing more than commercial exploitation of the royal family, and it should not happen. So he quotes a source as saying, Meghan knows the king loves gardening, organic produce, and homemade food. She believes the jams are thoughtful because that's something she's created herself. She hasn't. Oh my God, stop this. She wants the gift to feel personal, not extravagant. The timing, however, has raised eyebrows as speculation grows over Meghan's first UK visit in years. She has simultaneously ramped up promotion of As Ever, posting carefully curated social media videos showcasing buckets of fruit, tea, and her latest products. That's the dilemma with Meghan, says a royal insider. Is it a heartfelt peace offering or brilliant brand marketing? With her, those two things often happen at the same time. Those close to the Duchess insist there's no hidden agenda. She's not expecting the king to post about the jam on Instagram. She is crazy. She simply wants to arrive with something warm and homemade instead of an expensive royal-style gift. Oh, piss off. Piss off with your gross lavender honey that no one's buying. But in all seriousness, this farce has to end. I just repeat that point because what is happening is that the king and the British royal family are about to be embarrassed in the same way that the propagandists for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle just have been. Now, in fairness, Richard Eden is one of the few people within the British mainstream media who didn't fall for their lies, and he's now blowing the whistle on this secret WhatsApp group chat, which is why so many of the royal correspondents, who present podcasts like this and want you to trust them, have been made to look like absolute fools this week. Richard Eden writing, we journalists treasure our sources, and nowhere in my chosen trade is that more the case than in the ultra-competitive world of royal reporting, where inside information is extremely hard to come by. So it's understandable that some of my peers were thrilled to be included in a WhatsApp group created by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's Director of Communications, Liam Maguire. As members of the select group, they would be the first to learn the latest news from the California-based couple. Journalists who are members are not hard to identify because they all post the same updates, often using an identical form of words on social media as soon as these tablets of stone are handed down from Montecito. It's not journalism as such, but it does mean they have information that others such as myself do not possess. I cannot pretend to have refused to join the WhatsApp group on ethical or indeed other grounds because Mr. Maguire never invited me to join. Having been a social diarist for most of my career, I am used to being treated with caution. After all, ruffling feathers, not stroking them, is part of my job description. This week, however, I am profoundly relieved not to be a member of the Sussex's WhatsApp group because those who are have been made to look like prize chumps through no fault of their own, I might add. I disagree with Richard Eden on that. It is through a fault of their own. How many times do reporters have to realise Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are lying to you? All they have done for the past decade is lie to you. So do not trust them. So I disagree with Richard Eden. This is absolutely their fault. There's a reason why I never trust any of these briefings and why we always look under the surface to realise what's really going on with Harry and Meghan, because they lie like Pinocchio. Last Friday, Eden writes, they all received a long message confirming details of Prince Harry and Meghan's return visit to Britain. It wasn't just the type of short message they sometimes receive, but a long operational note detailing exactly what the couple would be doing after they landed in the country. News of the visit was duly reported on news websites within minutes and in newspapers the next day. The BBC's Daniela Ralph, for example, reported on the corporation's website that I pay for. We as British taxpayers pay for this nonsense reporting. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have accepted an offer to stay in a royal residence with their 2 children when they visit the UK next month. Harry and Meghan, as well as their son Archie and daughter Lily, will be guests of the King on a royal estate for their first trip as a family to Britain in 4 years. However, reporters' gratitude at confirmation of such a scoop turned to alarm the next day when the Sun newspaper reported that Harry's demand for automatic taxpayer-funded police protection had been rejected by the Home Office Committee, which decides such matters. This soon led to another ping on the phones of the WhatsApp group members. This time, it was a message informing them that everything they had been told the previous day and duly reported on their employee's website was, in fact, wrong. Harry was now reconsidering plans to bring his wife and children to the UK after his request for police protection was rejected, as the BBC's Daniela Ralph put it. Spare a thought for the BBC's poor website viewers. Less than 24 hours after they had been informed with all the authority that the corporation could muster that something was going to happen, they were now being told that it might not happen at all. Now, one of the people in that WhatsApp group, and he's very open about this, is Tom Sykes of The Royalist. But as a result of this false briefing, he has now well and truly turned. And he is actually disgusted now about the fact that this couple are invoking a terrorist attack in a British city to try and get their own way.
Harry and Meghan, they don't bring strength, they don't bring dignity, they don't bring stability, they bring chaos, they bring drama, they bring this cynicism, this willingness to just throw everybody under the bus, to just say that it's, I mean, honestly, to invoke the threat of a terrorist attack in a British city after what happened at Manchester, I just think it's absolutely disgraceful. And I think it's really damaging to the charities.
It absolutely is. Lauren, the Insider, is a royal YouTube sensation. She certainly isn't in the WhatsApp group. And the problem is, Lauren, what we have seen this week are a lot of so-called journalists simply be exposed as propagandists. And I disagree with Richard Eden when he says, oh, well, it's not their fault. I mean, how many times do you accept, Lauren, that you are going to be lied to before you reject the lies? And if you're still not rejecting the lies, I'm sorry, you don't deserve to be taken seriously by anyone. Certainly not by the public. If you value the whole truth and nothing but the truth on these royal stories, make sure you subscribe to Outspoken right now. It allows me to work outside of the MSM and the Royal Rota.
I agree. Look, I don't know why as well. I don't want to be seen as slamming anyone, but I am not here to not give proper commentary. Tom Sykes went to Geneva to cover Meghan Markle's talk there as well. Nothing that comes out of this woman's mouth can be trusted. None of these journalists are focusing on what the public deserve. And the public deserve the fact that this is a woman where bullying allegations have followed her around relentlessly. Harry and Meghan are hypocrites. This is why independent shows like yours, Dan, are so important, because by and large, I would say 99% of journalists are compromised if they are being given lines, schedules, information by the likes of Liam Maguire and the Team Sussex, so basically Meghan then they're obviously going to have to toe the line to some degree. They're not asking the proper questions that need to be asked. How about some of these journalists ask, why was Meghan named by Virginia Giuffre's lawyer about potentially being a witness? Why does Meghan have bullying allegations? Buried. Yeah, it's all been buried. It's buried all the time. And this is the problem I have when it comes to royal commentators. You know, be honest with your audience. If you have a long-standing working relationship, and I'm not naming any of them, but if any of these commentators have a long-standing working relationship with the Sussex team, they have to be honest with the public, because I do not think this is a woman that should be given a second chance whatsoever. And now people have got, you know, egg on their face. Nothing that comes from Team Sussex should be trusted, in my opinion. But equally, I would say nothing that comes from the palace can be trusted. We have seen Buckingham Palace leverage their position of power to squash stories frequently. And that is why we see one news agenda in the mainstream media and an entirely different news agenda, where we see people like the Royal Grift and Meghan's Mole and all these amazing independents that are actually holding people like Harry and Meghan to account and continuing to bring up the real story that the establishment journalists won't.
Indeed, and I've got a couple of examples of that, actually. Like, on this whole lie about Harry and security, which I'm going to come to, Royally Sage posted, Harry wants people to believe his private security knows more than Ravik. He is a dunce. And the Royal Grift made a point that the mainstream media would never be brave enough to report, but I obviously have, Lauren. I feel this loser is so desperate for this IPP status back that a false flag attack is looming. I can see these two harming others around them to prove to the Home Office he is a target. Sounds like Harry is foreshadowing it. And I do think that's fair enough for Tom Sykes for making that point. You know, who on earth now wants to go to Birmingham when Harry has literally advertised it to the world, Lauren, as a terror threat? If there is an attack, and I'm just going to be very clear on this, and some people won't like to hear it, Lauren. If there is an attack on Prince Harry or anyone connected to the Invictus Games now, this is on you, Harry. That would be the only reason why there is an attack, because you want it and you're advertising it and it's twisted. And then Shauna Kay posted, I think Harry would feel a whole lot safer if the Invictus Games Foundation removed him as a patron. It would stop all these high-profile events and he could retire from public life like Uncle Andy. Problem solved. And the Royal Grift responded, I think this is a great idea. Harry, and again, this is something that the mainstream media will not cover, Lauren. Harry has put the veterans' safety now, with all of this attention and putting ideas there of potential mass casualty, he has put their safety at threat. Stay home, Harry. Now, again, you will not see that analysis in the mainstream media whatsoever. Lauren, there's another point that I just think it's important that I make too, because people will wonder, well, Dan, you used to work in the mainstream media. How were you able to break all of these stories on the Sussexes? Because I really have broken more royal stories than any of these people within the royal rota. And Lauren, I was very lucky, actually, when Harry and Meghan were causing chaos within the British royal family. I had an editor, he's called Tony Gallagher, he's now the editor of the Times newspaper. Not a newspaper I support in a lot of ways, but he's a very brave editor, Lauren. And he said, Dan, you can go where the story goes. As soon as Tony Gallagher was moved off The Sun and replaced by a woman called Victoria Newton, who was a propagandist for certain parts of the royal family, guess what, Lauren? I was no longer able and free to report truthfully, which is one of the main reasons why I ended up leaving the Sun newspaper and going to work for GB News, and at the time the Mail Online, which was run by another brilliant and brave editor called Martin Clark. So very often journalists are constrained based on who their editor is, and you've got to be very careful to have an editor that you know will allow you to report the truth. The great thing is now, Lauren, I have no editor. You have no editor. You know, we simply are not prepared to be gatekept anymore. We simply will report the truth. And I think
I'm so glad as well, Dan, you've made that point, because I will often say things that will go against 99% of people out there, and they're running all of these lines. And I'm sure some people look at me and they think you're on another planet. But like you say, we know, because we've been in that kind of, I guess it's almost like a secret society. We are
absolutely, and they
like
protect each other. And that's why they all say the same stuff, because it's like power in numbers.
And we're like the magicians that are bringing up the veil and explaining to people. And that's why when it comes to this security, this is not what anyone else has said. I am adamant he's got this security. And let me just tell you why. The optics of how this is playing out in the public is absolutely clickbait. It's hysteria. And it's all being done because if Harry comes back and people think he's got his security, and let's say, you know, there's the court case, and if that's one, all of a sudden, people are going to say, hang on, that's two good lots of news for Harry. Ultimately, Harry is tied into the establishment because of Invictus, which is a framework built to give him relevance, in my belief. And so the Labour government giving him £26.6 million, there is so much resting on Invictus. It's being held in Birmingham. And Birmingham is a heavily Islamic area where it is not safe for Jews and Christians to be, okay? They need it to work. They need Invictus to work. Now, you talk about the fact that it's being held in Birmingham. It was between Birmingham and Washington, D.C. I've done my own investigation into this. The fact it was chosen to be Birmingham, it was the board of Invictus that chose this. So it's all very strange. It ties into this establishment plot. Birmingham is not a safe area for it to happen. But maybe Prince Harry should have thought about boasting in Spare when he took millions of pounds and he spoke about Taliban members being chess pieces. Now, whilst no one's saying what he did in the line of duty is wrong, there is a way to go about this. He has brought so much of this on. You know, he has invited this. And I think it's absolutely disgraceful that we will have Jewish and Christian veterans that will not feel safe to go there. The problem we've got, Dan, is many people will not speak out about this because the royal patronage, royal funding, government funding, it's such a large spider web that people are too scared to speak out about it.
Absolutely. And Lauren, what we're also seeing, unfortunately, is the worst type of what in the business we previously called client journalism. But actually, I don't even use the word journalism. I mean, ITV, woke ITV, as I call it, an organisation run by Tom Bradby. Now, remember that guy chose Prince Harry over Prince William. Prince William and Catherine refused to speak to him now, even though they gave him the engagement interview. And he has his little minions. The royal editor, who is called Chris Shipp and conducted that very weird interview with Harry in Ukraine recently. Charlene White, who is one of the most hated TV presenters in this country. She's a loose woman, but when she went on I'm a Celebrity, she was the first voted out because the public just hate her. She has been one of these DEI hires, Lauren. You know, she's been promoted because she is non-white. That is just a fact. I'm sorry, some people won't like it, but it's true. She's got no talent. And then their royal producer called Lizzie Robinson, who they're trying to turn into some type of presenter. And all of these people have been sent out this week, not to do journalism, Lauren, but to push Harry and Meghan's sick propaganda about this untrue threat. So I just want to take you through some of it, Lauren, so we can dismantle it. But first, I want to show you the straight news coverage, which was anchored across all of ITV's main broadcasts yesterday, anchored by Charlene, with Chris Shipp doing the reporting. But first, do you remember when energy used to feel effortless? You'd get through a workout, a long day, a bad night's sleep, and still feel sharp. But as you get older, trust me, it can start to feel like your body and brain don't have the same spark they used to. Here's the interesting part. That's not in your head. It's biology. When we're younger, our bodies naturally produce and regenerate high levels of creatine. But as we move into our 40s and beyond, that production steadily declines. And that means less readily available energy for both our muscles and our brains. That's exactly why Qualia Creatine Plus was created. Here's the key thing though. You can't just take any old creatine and assume it's doing the job. It has to actually get into your cells and then be activated so your body can use it properly. That's why Qualia Creatine Plus is different. It combines 2 clinically studied forms of creatine with electrolytes, all chosen to support absorption and activation. It includes easy-to-mix micronized creatine monohydrate in a new form called OptiCreatine, plus creatine magna power, along with a precise amount of sea salt to help support uptake where it matters most. What makes this stand out is that it's not just creatine, it's the delivery system your body needs to make it work for you. We're way past the dark ages of creatine being just for gym bros. Creatine is critical for energy, metabolism, cognition, and healthy aging, not just lifting like a bodybuilder. So go to qualialife.com/Dan for 50% off. And here's a bonus. Use the code Dan for an additional 15% off your order. That's QUALIA life.com/Dan and use the code Dan. And thank you so much to Qualia for sponsoring this episode. Now, back to the show.
ITV News has seen a highly sensitive security which has identified at least 6 terror plots against Prince Harry. The confidential document was commissioned by Harry's own private security firm. He's due back in the UK next week, but as our royal editor Chris Shipp reports, there are still concerns about the safety of him and his family.
Well, as I say, this isn't a report, it's a piece of propaganda. I mean, they even tried to bring in high-profile UK politicians like the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, who didn't give them the answer they wanted on this.
Next week, Harry will return to the UK and had been planning to bring Meghan and their 2 children, Archie and Lilibet, to see their grandfather King Charles. Harry's here ahead of next year's Invictus Games in Birmingham and had thought his security was being reviewed, but not so. His team now claim they've been offered nothing more than the phone number of a police liaison officer.
Prince Harry is a high-profile member of the royal family, even if he is not a working royal. I think the Home Office should make the right assessment on what his security needs should be, but I can't really say much more than that.
And what's so funny, the only police protection officer who they could actually quote ended up pouring a bucket of rubbish over Harry's argument.
There is absolutely no way in the world that if the UK authorities thought there was a genuine, current, credible terrorist threat against him and his family, that they wouldn't be providing that armed security.
The King was in the Scottish borders today. He hasn't seen his grandchildren for 4 years, but Buckingham Palace says all issues of security are a matter for the government. The Home Office says its system for deciding on who gets what security is rigorous and proportionate. Chris Shipp, ITV News.
So, Lauren, they claim that is like the straight news coverage, but it gets worse because they then have their own podcast now. It's called Talking Royals. It's an embarrassment, Lauren. I mean, less than 2,000 people, as we come to air, have actually watched it. Because why would you watch propaganda when you can get the truth from Outspoken or Lauren the Insider? But they use this podcast to push the narrative even further, with Chris Shipp saying, oh, you know, it would be so bad for the United Kingdom and the brand of the United Kingdom if Harry ended up being attacked. Watch.
Since he left the royal family, I'm sure lots of people will be going, I'm not going to pay for his security. Why should I pay for his security? But I mean, anyone who, you know, might be attacked on the streets of the UK, that is bad for UK PLC. That's a bad look around the world, whether that's a member of the royal family or any kind of celebrity that might be here for a concert.
Yeah, and there are lots of circumstances where the Metropolitan Police have spent lots of money on protecting it, is that actually for events that none of us will ever go to, like any large, big, massive football match that happens in London especially, you know, the cost to the Metropolitan Police for keeping an eye out on adults who should know better rather than daytime drinking and causing fights. I don't particularly want to have to pay for that. I think they should all be able to behave themselves, but they clearly can't.
Yeah.
So there's lots of stuff in the Metropolitan Police.
Yeah, but I suppose you've got to think, why haven't they just done a review? You know, what are the threats against Harry? He is the son of the king. He did fight in Afghanistan. And if he is going to come back to his home country, why doesn't someone just do a quick review and say, actually, nah, we're going to go with the same thing? Or actually, you raised some valid points and we think you should have a little bit.
Yeah, but at least he'll feel like they're doing
here.
something.
Because, Chris Shipp, there is nothing to review. Like, Prince Harry's moans and terror fantasies, which are so creepy, don't change the reality. But I want to show you what they do, because this is emotional manipulation. They then turn to woke ITV's producer turned royal expert, this woman called Lizzie Robinson, who is actually close to tears here, as she describes Harry's devastation.
And now, because of that, because there's no change, he is reviewing everything. He's thinking very carefully about whether to still bring Meghan and the children to the UK. He is, we're told, looking at kind of all possible options that could be
how's
there.
he feeling about the fact that they might not come?
Devastated, I think. He has said a lot that he would like his children to come to the UK to see where he grew up, to see where he's from. But he would also really love to introduce the children to their grandfather, the king, who they haven't seen since 2022. He would love for them to have a relationship. He said that he wants family reconciliation.
As I'm sure the king would as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Lauren, so that podcast has been up for 22 hours now. It's had 1,900 views, just pointing that out. But I wanted to show you this, Lauren, all as a package, because does this not show you the lengths that woke ITV are prepared to go to? The emotional manipulation, the manipulation of the facts. And I think it very much buys into what you're saying, that this is all part of an establishment plot, because otherwise, why would ITV throw away their credibility like this?
Right. So what we need to do is I always say, I analyse timelines. I am a media expert in this. ITV have been pushing this pro-Harry agenda for some time. When Tom Bower went on to ITV's This Morning, Tom Bower was treated as a gutter journalist, which he absolutely is not. And it was Kat Deely and Ben Shepherd. And I did a video at the time. I said there is something going on behind the scenes because the narrative is set in stone and they are warming towards Harry. Now, Harry booked his flight. He'd already told us his line in the sand was he would only bring Meghan and the invisible children over if he had the security. And then we're meant to believe out of nowhere, the security then got pulled. None of this makes sense, Dan. And I have a very, very strong suspicion that the public are being taken for fools. I've already contacted the Home Office, who have said they couldn't confirm either way if Harry had got his security. We then saw stories coming out saying King Charles will provide armed security for Harry. Well, I debunked that. That is illegal. So whoever planted that story.
This video is for news reporting, commentary, and educational purposes. The views expressed are based on publicly available information and personal analysis. We strive for accuracy but encourage viewers to verify information through official sources.